Excellent. Yeah, like this says, supply chain security. It's not the most interesting of titles. I tried to think of something funny, bit of an acronym, say any TLAs, we are IT. Let's see what we could do, but we'll go through it, and I'm trying to talk about the risks that we all see every day, the risks that we can't see, and how can we put a framework that's actually going to mean we do a job once, but we do it right, rather than having to do it multiple times, time and time again. How do you get the rest of the business on board to understand the problems that you've got with this? You know, we all see it, we all live it every single day, but our finance team might be focused more on spend rather than on risk. They don't see that. How do we translate that across into the business? So the first one is a little bit about me, so you can understand where I am, what I've come from. Unfortunately, about 25 years in IT. That gets worse and worse every year, won't lie. Chartered IT professional, I'm quite proud of that one. With the breadth of knowledge test that they put you through and everything, that's quite a challenge. My areas of interest are service, security and governance. So I'm very, very service driven. I look at security as a service to the business. How can we make that service work for our users, our people? How can we make that work, and how can we be a little bit smarter about it? My background is working with outsourcers. I come from an outsourcers world, over 350 organisations and some large national projects, some very small projects. I'm now an in-house CISO, and I'm the other side of the table. That's quite a transition. I'm still find myself putting an MSP head on it. It's handy to be able to sell across into the business. It's really, really handy for that one. My main passion is about making security invisible. That's the goal. People resist security and people avoid security because they think we're the Department of No, but we've got to become the Department of KNOW, no. A little bit of a play on words with a Scouse accent, I accept that you're never going to get that joke across properly. And I'm responsible for information and cybersecurity at the second largest oil refinery in the UK. We look after 16 to 20% of the UK's daily fuel needs every single day. And yes, by the way, touching on the Scouse point, it takes one to know one. I totally accept that. Who would put a Scouser in charge of security? Fully understand it. Get it all today. So let's just look at a simple supply chain and what we think of a supply chain. Why do we have them? So you've got your company, originally named, and then you've got two providers. Let's just keep it simple. You've got a managed IT provider and a business process outsourcer. So you look at those and you go, right, I'm going to audit those and make sure that they're doing their things. But they've got suppliers as well. They're not doing everything. Your IT provider's probably got specialist resource. You know, CCIEs, they don't come cheap. They've probably got a provider for them. Your managed IT provider's probably using a cloud provider. They might be using Microsoft. They might be using somebody else. You don't know. All of these risks start to waterfall down through. Your business process outsourcer's got a managed IT provider, who again's got a specialist resource provider, cloud service provider, all of those, and it starts to turn into a massive web. And it gets really, really problematic and overwhelming. That's the biggest problem. So why do we use them then if it's that much of a problem for every single one of us? Why don't we just start to simplify and ratify? Surely. We all need to buy pens and paper. If you work at a company that can do everything that you need on its own, please do give me a shout because I'd be very interested in applying. I've not met one. Others will do it better, faster, cheaper. If they didn't, we wouldn't have all of those stalls out there. It's just that simple. It's probably not in your capabilities. We've all got post-it notes. We all know people who write their passwords on post-it notes. Someone's got to make them. If they stop making them, half of our problems would go away in the world of security. I accept that. But people love post-it notes. And anyway, we could go on about that all day. And doing everything we need in our own business is just not possible. We can't do it. We've got to accept that we're going to have supply chains. We're going to have supply chain risks. So we all look at things as a service. You can buy everything as a service. You can buy hacking as a service. You can buy phishing as a service. You can jump on. It's the price of a coffee. It's that simple. So what does everyone do? Their estate isn't my problem. I've bought a service. I don't need to care about it. I've got a contract that says that it does that. That wasn't supposed to happen. That was supposed to happen. So I've bought a service. The contract says they will do everything. They've got a contract that says they're going to look after the security. I don't need to care about it. It's fine. Is it really? Is it really? How do you know their staff aren't putting their passwords on post-it notes and that's accepted in that organisation? You don't know these things. What if that password's got admin level access to a couple of your DCs? All of a sudden, your DC is massively exposed. But let's look at ITIL. Every one of us has probably used ITIL at some point. We've probably been on the foundation courses. Paraphrased from ITIL 4, because they've changed it slightly. A service is a means of enabling value by facilitating outcomes we want to achieve without managing the cost and the risk. The risks are the big one there. We don't want the risks when we outsource a service. But the second that breach happens, and it's through that supply chain, it's going to be one of us that's in the room that gets that finger pointed at them. And we're going to go to that supplier and expect them to bail us out. It's too late. If that's happened, it's just too late. We all accept ITIL as best practice. It's just natural for us. It is a collection of hours of people's experience pulled together in one place. We'd be foolish to ignore that. But we don't do that for security. Why not? Why don't we have something like that? Look at what we've got in the room, knowledge-wise. It's unbelievable what's here. If you started something like that, you could actually make quite a big difference. So, could this be you? It's that simple. You've got the best firewalls on the market. You've got multi-factor authentication. You've got a 15-point password that's got no two characters next to each other the same, that expires and deletes your account after 5 attempts. I've had Blackberries that done that. One of the games was to pick up someone's Blackberry and enter the password wrong 4 times and then run away. Because it's impossible. It was 15 characters long. But what if your suppliers are like that? I don't think that it's going to be that hard to walk into that house and knock on the door. That gate makes it a challenge. I'll just take one step to the right and I'll step over the hedge. What if that's your estate? Right now, who in the room could honestly say that that isn't their estate? I know I can't. I look after a critical national piece of infrastructure. I don't know 100% of my suppliers. I know all 100% of my connections, but we'll go into that sort of stuff. And this is the one that I use to actually scare people and make people think, because it is important. But it's nice to stand up here and talk about all the things that you should do. Let's get a little bit real. There's so much we're expected to do every single day. Let's be fair. Taking care of just your own estate is difficult enough. Your own users present enough of a challenge. Managing them is a hard enough job. Then you've got your accountants, you've got your finance teams, you've got your HR teams, you've got all of these things. You've got your DevOps teams bringing along all these fancy, wacky ideas of why don't we do this so every Thursday it automatically unlocks. Slow down. That's a challenge. You're only a single person with a small team probably. Then we're going to throw some standards into the mix as well. All that work that comes with complying with those, that starts to drag you down. So you need all these extra pieces. You've got probably a lack of resource and capabilities. Did anyone say threat intelligence? Who's got the time to actually go through every single one of those exactly 100% every single time? I know I haven't. And I know most people haven't. You probably get a massive amount of funding after the event. Before it, you're not going to get much. And the second it happens, after the horse has bolted, you're going to get a pile of cash injected into your department and you're going to be able to spend on all the things that you should have had 6 months ago that could have stopped the event. Staying at the top of the agenda and the board, really difficult. Prime example is the subject title for this. It's hardly the most sexy and interesting title, really, was it? How do you keep that really key across your business? Why is your, in my world, operations manager is responsible for the refinery? Why does he care about his suppliers? He cares about his production and the quality of oil that he's getting in and the quality of fuel that's going out. So your holidays go on time, your trains work, your fuel works, all of that. That's what he cares about. How do I keep that top of his mind? So where do we start? That's a very big question. So I approach it in 3 ways. So first question I ask is what? What suppliers have I got? What's important to me? And what do I expect those suppliers to do? So if I've got a managed IT provider that's done an onshore and offshore presence, I have, that's a very critical supplier to me. If I've got someone that's sending me, selling me post-it notes, and they're just sending me the odd invoice, there's 2 different sets of risks there, there's 2 different sets of requirements. I need to understand the difference between the 2. And what I expect of those starts to form itself. I then need to look at who. So who are my critical suppliers? And who manages that relationship? Who's responsible for it? Is it the finance team? Have you got service managers? Have you got account managers? Who's responsible for their cybersecurity? When was the last time you spoke with them? When was the last time you got them together? And like we were talking about this morning with little community groups, why wouldn't you have a community group for your suppliers? Once every 3 months, pull everyone together and just say, right, this is what we're seeing. It's a fantastic way to start to build bridges to get everybody talking the same language. And then you need to think about the where. So does a supplier keep a connection to your estate? Have they got a nice simple, let's break it down to a really basic level, an IPsec VPN tunnel? Have they got one? Yet they're a risk. Have they got one? No. Okay, you don't need to worry about that. Do they connect into your cloud environments? Yeah. Well, there's a backdoor. Anyone could traverse through there. Have you got a BPO that's a rather large Indian-based outsourcer that maybe released to the press that they'd been attacked for quite a few months? Yes. Maybe you need to sit down and have a chat with them and understand what your costs of traversal might be and what the risks to your data are. If that's a struggle, start at your firewalls. What's coming in, what's going out? Who's going where? It's a perfect place to start. Let's be honest and fair. We know what the standard says, that you know every single rule on the firewall. We also know real life. You probably don't. Ask one of your engineers to just take a couple of hours out and detail all of them. Start from there. That will give you a good idea of where your key critical suppliers are. If you've done that, you've got that starter for 10. And you've started that ball rolling, and that's one of the biggest challenges that you see. So then you start to think about tiered suppliers, and every business will give you tiered suppliers. You know, it's nice, it's simple. It allows you to know who your big important, I'll keep on going back to it, your post-it notes. Not that important, really. I mean, you can get an app for it. Simple, replace it, digitize it. So put your most criticals into the top supplier. But what is criticality? Again, you've got to think about what's important to you. To me, within an oil refinery, it's one set of things. Health and safety and the access to our safety control systems is massive. I don't want another Buncefield on my hands. Buncefield is about 1/15 the size of our plant. And if anyone remembers the size of the explosion and the smoke bloom from Buncefield, you can imagine what that would do to the northwest of England. Joke for the southerners, it might do about 10's worth of damage. I'm allowed to say it's positive discrimination. But also don't forget that every single supplier sends you an invoice. Phishing's the easiest way in. It's just that simple. How can you do that? DMARC, TLS 1.2, it's really simple. DMARC's free. It takes 10 minutes to set it up. Make sure your suppliers are doing it. Make sure you're doing it. All of a sudden, you've done the best defense you can do. It's nice and simple. So don't ignore every single supplier that you've got on the basis of, well, they're not that critical to me. But then your biggest challenge is data, not dosh. All your finance teams will tell you that the most important suppliers are the ones that you spend the most money with, because that's what matters. It's how much money we spend. Almost every business is the same. We're data people. That's what we care about. Try and help them shift their focus to data. What if it was their bank account details from the payroll provider that was stolen, and the payroll provider is going to be quite low down the list? And if you make it personal to them, that could be your bank account details, that tends to make people sit up and pay attention, especially when they realise that I might not get paid at the end of the month. Drive that across the business, raise awareness. Don't scare people. Scaring people is not a good idea. You'll end up back into the whole GDPR sales cycle of the world's going to end and you're all going to pay 4% of your annual turnover. We all remember those on the amount of emails we all got in May. It's ridiculous. Of course, that's going to mean reviewing data and connectivity, because you're going to need to know who those suppliers are. If your engineer's already gone through your firewall rules, you're ahead of the curve. You're in that real good position. So how do I look at cybersecurity across the entirety of the estate? I use 4 pillars. I've started there, and I'll look at 4 pillars. Nice and simple. Managing security risk, which is governance, risk management, asset management. Who's got what? Why have they got it? Why are they using one of my desktops in their building? Things like that matter. And supply chain. That's what we group into that area. Anyone who's an operator of essential service or familiar with the NCSC will know exactly what's coming up next. Protecting against cyber attack. So what are your processes? What are you going to do when you're attacked? Because you're going to get attacked. It's not an if, it's a when. Make sure that you're prepared and you're ready for that. How are you going to find the incidents? If you've put all the defences in but you don't know if there's any problems going on, you sat there going, I'm not getting any alerts. My cybersecurity is really good. You're a liar. It's just that simple. Someone's lying to you. You've got to be able to connect to detect them. They are happening. If you can't detect them, you don't know what's going on. And the final one is, when it does go wrong, notice I said when, not if, what are you going to do? Norsk, I think, is the company, their share price went up when they switched off all their IT systems and they went back to paper-based manufacturing for a couple of weeks. Their share price went up. In the middle of a cybersecurity incident where they've said, yeah, we've basically gone to pen and paper. What a fantastic way to handle a security incident. Absolutely superb. If you're in a business that's got shareholders, that's the sort of position you want to be. I'm not in that position. Mine's a privately owned business. So how do I do that? I use something called, sorry for all the acronyms here, the National Cybersecurity Centre's Cyber Assessment Framework. I'm an operator of an essential service as defined under the NIST regulations. It's an outcome-focused framework for good cybersecurity. Notice that it's outcome-based. It's not a tick box like 27001 that says, show me that you've got a password policy. And that password policy could be 6 characters. If your password meets that, you've met it. Well done you. You can start your 27001 journey. Seems a bit simple. It's relevant to all sectors. So whilst I'm in oil and gas, the same cyber assessment framework applies to the people who look after utilities, that applies to IXPs, it applies to everybody. It's a simple framework that just says, this is what good looks like, and it drives continual improvement. The rules on our game change day to day, every single day. Our processes and our procedures have got to be able to respond to that, and we've got to drive that through. But more importantly, it's not a pass-fail. Think of it as poor, good, best. And if you start to approach it like that, then you can start to identify where your problems lie in your supply chain, in your own estate. So then you can focus very quickly and very easily on the areas that need to matter to you. Because you sat there and you're overwhelmed. You've got all these things going on. You've got threat intelligence coming in. You've got Cisco adverts coming in. You've got people saying Huawei are going to bring the world to an end. All of these things, and you're like, okay, what's my password policy up to today? All of this, it's not pass-fail. And no, it's not. It's risk-based. Everything is risk-based. We know this. How many times have we had the word risk today? 20, 30 times? We should all get ISO 31,000 certifications and just be done with it, become consultants. But it really allows you to find out where your suppliers are doing really, really well or not. And then work with those suppliers who aren't. It's sector agnostic. It is outcome focused. It's straightforward and cost effective. So what does it consist of? 4 objectives, 14 principles, 39 indicators of good practice. It's just that simple. It's that easy. Notice it's good practice. So, you're not an OES. I don't have to do this. No, you don't. But if you're one of my suppliers, you're going to. Because I'm required by the legislation to make sure all my suppliers are doing it. You may very well work for a company that supplies my organisation today. I don't know. Good practice isn't legislative. We know this. ITIL isn't prescriptive. ITIL says do what you need to and then change it to suit you. Our security practices work like this using the cyber assessment framework. But we all use ITIL. But we don't apply the same sort of thinking to cybersecurity. We've got our 27001 rules. And all hail 27001. Nothing can go wrong if we've got that. Yes, it will. The NCSC. This sounds like a big advert. I am picking up a brown paper bag from them on the way back from Euston Station. Apparently there's going to be a tree with an X marked on it. I'm looking for it. I'm looking forward to it. They have got some of the best qualified people. We know this. And they offer that advice freely. Free. My biggest rule is if I've got to spend money, I've got to ask permission. If I haven't got to spend money, I don't have to ask permission. I can do it. I don't have to ask. It's simple. I can get it there. Why would I turn it down? Do it once, do it well. Why do things multiple times? If you've got PCI and you've got 27001 and you've got something else, maybe NIST, I bet you're going through separate audits for them and you're doing separate paperwork for every single one. I'd get sick and tired of that. Why not just do it once and do it well? If you're doing the CAF, you're actually performing all of your evidence already. Refer your auditors to the evidence. It's going to be recorded in your systems. Just say, yeah, there you go. Go and have a look at the system. It's all there, it's all done. We understand best practice. We all get, and I'll refer to ITIL because it's standard for everyone in IT. We get it, we use it, but we've got nothing for IT really like that. And that's where I see the cyber assessment framework stepping in. And this is what journey I'm taking on. I called it the waterfall effect. The infamous your company's back. So I'm going to fall that down to my suppliers. I was just saying before, I've got a new hosted cloud solution for my telephony coming in. They are now, as part of the tender response, agreed to once a year complete a cyber assessment framework, supply it to me, and I will work with them to make sure that any gaps that they identify, we're going to improve on. Nice and simple. Now, what if they started to move that down to their suppliers? All of a sudden, my own job has just become a hell of a lot easier. I'm going to sleep on so much better every single night, and I'm going to be sat there waiting for that phone call to go in and say, one supplier's just lost their systems and everything's gone down. So it's not a quick one, but how do you engage across your organisation? This is the big challenge. A lot of people in the IT world, I did say service was my passion, will use what we call organisational change management. So you need to create a sense of urgency across your business. You've got to help them understand that this matters, critically matters. This could affect all your individual payrolls, which is going to affect your mortgage payments, and theirs as well. It's just that simple. Explain that urgency, but try not to scare people. Engage with the business. Make sure that they understand why you're doing it. You're doing it to help them, not to hinder them. You're actually trying to help them protect their estate. You're there for security. The accountants are the finance people. They can tell you what the depreciation and the tax reclamation is on an asset and why it's capitalised rather than operational expenditure. They get that. That's their speciality. You're there to protect their security and make sure that that's there. The big one is tell everyone. Make sure that communication is key. Everyone, no matter CEO, cleaner, everybody needs to understand why this is happening. They're all part of it and they're all targets for it. Prepare for resistance. It's going to happen. People don't want to involve with security. They will avoid us. Some sort of lepers is what we are when we walk into buildings sometimes. They just look at them and looking at them. If I don't look at them, they won't talk to me. They won't interrupt my project. My project's not getting disturbed. Empower your people. Make sure that they know that that's all there. And then reinforce it. Once you've launched it, it doesn't stop there. This is ongoing. So every single week on our plant, we do health and safety briefings. Like, don't leave things lying around. Who left that electric wire dangling from the ceiling? And that's every single week. And that's why we've won a ROSPA Gold. That's why we got over 1 million working hours of no accidents, but lost time incidents. Brilliant result. Where's cybersecurity fit in all of that? I'm stealing all of their thunder and all their keywords because it's embedded across my organisation, and I'll carry on pushing it. So I use lost time to cyber incident because they use it lost time to safety incident. Things like that, bringing it across that. It wouldn't be a pitch if I didn't use a big number. I don't work for an organisation that's going to sell you, but I wouldn't feel like it was a pitch if I didn't use a big number. That's Varonis' version of what cybercrime is going to cost, $6 trillion. In 2 years, I don't want to be a part of them. I really don't. How am I going to do it? By making sure my suppliers are up to speed, everything like that. So if I was to pass on a couple of pieces of information, it'd be, remember, the cyber assessment framework, have a look at it. It's freely available on the NCSC's website. It will really help you drive that focus and highlight your gaps. It's not tick box, it's a journey, it's focused on outcomes. Good practice, that's the real key. But only you can measure your risk appetite. What's important to you isn't important to me. What's important to me may not be important to you. You have to tailor it, much the same though you were told this in your ITIL Foundation trainings. Take it and tailor it for you. There's what it looks like. It's not the most interesting of websites, but it's all new and fancy. It's really well laid out, and it's free. And it's a collection of the real best technical people in the country's advice. Why would you turn that down? Especially when it's free. And that's me. Thank you very much for your time. If you've got any questions, my details are on there. I'm knocking around all day. Thank you very much for listening.